I should have known something was off the moment Desmond said, "I'm not gay, bro. Like, at all." Because no straight guy says it that many times, unless he's trying to convince himself. We met at the gym. Nothing dramatic. Just two guys reaching for the same dumbbell at the same time, doing that awkward half laugh, half apology thing. He let me take it, then stuck around, asking how many sets I had left, like he wasn't just making an excuse to keep talking. Desmond had that kind of presence you notice immediately. Tall, broad shoulders, always wearing those sleeveless hoodies like he knew people were looking. Confident, but not in an annoying way. More like he'd grown into himself and didn't question it. I wasn't like that. I kept things low-key. Headphones in, workouts done, leave. No unnecessary conversations. Definitely no flirting with straight guys who could ruin your peace just by existing. But somehow, he slipped past all that. "Yo, you come here often?" he asked, leaning against the rack like we were in some cliché movie scene. I smirked. "Nah, just breaking in for the first time." He laughed. Loud. Real. Aight, smartass. That was it. That's how it started. After that, we kept running into each other. Same time, same area. At first, it was just nods. Then small talk. Then suddenly we were spotting each other, sharing water, talking about random stuff between sets. It felt easy. Too easy. And I think that's what got me. Because Desmond didn't act like most straight guys around me. He didn't get weird. Didn't create distance. If anything, he closed it. Like one time, I was mid-bench press, struggling on the last rep, and he stepped in behind me to help. His hands were on the bar, sure, but his chest brushed against my head for a second when I pushed up. Too close. Way too close. I racked the weight and sat up fast, pretending to catch my breath. "You good?" he asked, standing there like nothing happened. "Yeah," I said a little too quickly. He smirked. "You sure? Looked like you were about to die." I forced a laugh, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. Because he didn't move away right after. He stayed close. Like lingering. That was the first time I noticed it. And once you notice something like that, you don't unnotice it. We started hanging out outside the gym not long after. It wasn't planned or anything. One day he just said, "Yo, I'm grabbing food after this. You trying to come?" Casual. Like it didn't mean anything. I told myself it didn't. So I went. We sat in this small burger place, nothing fancy, just greasy food and loud music. He talked a lot, about his job, his ex, random stories from high school. I mostly listened, chiming in here and there. But every now and then, he'd look at me in this focused way. Like he was studying me. "So you got a girl?" he asked out of nowhere, halfway through his fries. I shrugged. "Nah." He raised an eyebrow. "Nah as in nah right now, or nah as in nah ever?" There it was. I took a sip of my drink, buying time. "Nah as in, I'm not into girls." He blinked once. Then leaned back. "Huh. That was it." No weird reaction. No awkward silence. Just, "Huh? You?" I asked, even though I already knew. He laughed. "Bro, I just told you about my ex." "Yeah, but that doesn't answer the question." He shook his head, smiling. "I'm straight, man. Always have been." There it was again. So casual. So certain. But something about the way he said it felt rehearsed. I didn't push it. Didn't need to. Because actions? They were starting to say something else entirely. It got more obvious over time. The touches. That's what did it. At first, it was normal. Friendly. Shoulder bumps, quick pats, nothing unusual. But then it started stretching. Like when we'd sit next to each other, his leg would press against mine, and stay there. Not accidentally. Not briefly. Just there. Or when he'd throw his arm around me while laughing, pulling me in a little too tight, holding it a second longer than necessary. I told myself I was overthinking. I had to be. Because he said it himself, right? I'm straight. That should have been the end of it. Except, one night changed everything. We were at his place. First time. He had invited me over to watch a game, but neither of us were really paying attention. It turned into talking, then drinking, then just sitting there on his couch, the room dim except for the TV glow. At some point, he shifted closer. I noticed immediately. Didn't react. Didn't move. My heart, though. Different story. You ever think about it? He asked suddenly, voice quieter than usual. I frowned slightly. Think about what? He hesitated. Then he shrugged, like he was trying to play it off. Like guys. You know. There it was again. That same question. But this time, it felt heavier. I studied him for a second. I mean, yeah? That's kinda my thing. He huffed a small laugh, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, I know, I just. He cut himself off. What? I asked. He looked at me then. Really looked. And for a second, I swear everything else in the room just disappeared. Nothing, he muttered. But he didn't move away. If anything, he got closer. Close enough that I could feel the heat from his arm against mine. Close enough that if I turned my head just slightly. Yeah. That close. My chest tightened. Desmond, I said quietly, not even sure what I was about to say. He swallowed. I'm not gay, he said again. And this time? It didn't sound convincing at all. Because right after he said it, his hand brushed against mine. And he didn't pull away. I didn't either. And that's where everything really started. I should have pulled my hand away. That would have been the smart thing to do. Instead, I just let it sit there. His fingers barely touching mine, like he was testing something he didn't fully understand. And the crazy part? He wasn't even looking at our hands. He was looking at me. Like he was waiting. For what, I didn't know. But I felt it, that shift. That moment where things stopped being accidental. You're not moving, he said quietly. Neither are you. A small smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth, but it didn't reach his eyes. Those were different. Focused. Almost tense. Yeah, but I'm not the one who. He stopped himself again, jaw tightening. Who what? I pushed. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. I don't know, man. This is weird. Then stop, I said, even though I didn't move either. That got his attention. His eyes snapped back to mine, searching. You want me to? There it was. A clear out. All I had to do was say yes. But I didn't. And I think that told him everything. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Then, slowly, his fingers moved. Not away. They slid slightly against mine, more deliberate this time. My chest tightened. Desmond, I said again, but it came out quieter than before. Tell me to stop, he said, voice low. But his hand didn't stop. And neither did mine. That's when I realized something. He wasn't as unsure as he was pretending to be. It escalated in the smallest way possible. His hand turned, fingers loosely intertwining with mine for half a second before he pulled back like he just touched fire. Shit, he muttered, standing up abruptly. I stayed where I was, watching him pace a couple steps before stopping, hands on his hips. This is exactly what I mean, he said, half to himself. I'm not, this isn't. Gay? I finished for him. He looked at me, frustrated. Yeah. I leaned back against the couch, trying to keep my voice steady. Then why are you acting like this? He didn't answer right away. Didn't even look at me. Instead, he stared at the floor like it might give him an answer. I don't know, he admitted finally. And that was the most honest thing he'd said all night. The air between us shifted again. Less tense. More real. I stood up slowly, closing some of the distance between us, but not all of it. You don't have to figure it out right now, I said. But you can't keep saying one thing and doing another. He let out a dry laugh. Yeah, I'm starting to realize that. For a second, either of us moved. Then he glanced up. And that look again. God. It hit harder this time. Less confused. More certain. You ever mess with a straight guy before? He asked. I raised an eyebrow. You asking for advice or permission? Neither, he said quickly, but his smirk gave him away. Just asking. Yeah, I admitted. Didn't end well. He nodded slowly, like he expected that. Why? I asked. He hesitated. Then stepped closer. Close enough that I had to tilt my head slightly to keep eye contact. Because I'm trying to figure out if I'm about to make the same mistake, he said. My pulse spiked. And are you? His gaze dropped to my lips for a split second before coming back up. I don't think so. That should have been the moment I stopped it. Set boundaries. Made things clear. But instead, I stayed. And so did he. Neither of us saying what was obvious. Because saying it would make it real. And real meant consequences. Tell me something, I said quietly. He hummed. If I move right now, are you gonna stop me? He didn't even hesitate. No. That was all I needed. I closed the distance. Not fast. Not dramatic. Just enough that I could feel his breath. And for a second, nothing happened. No sudden movement. No rushing. Just tension. Thick. Heavy. Unavoidable. His hand found my arm, gripping lightly like he needed something to ground himself. I'm not gay, he said again, softer this time. I almost laughed. Yeah, I murmured. I can tell. That's when he did it. Not all at once. Not confidently. But deliberately. He leaned in. Paused. Like he was giving himself one last chance to back out. Then, he didn't. And the second it happened, everything changed. He pulled back almost immediately after, breathing uneven. Okay, he said quickly, like he was trying to regain control. Okay, that. But he didn't finish. Because he looked at me again. And whatever he saw made him forget what he was about to say. Yeah, I said quietly. Still not gay? He let out a shaky laugh, running a hand over his face. I don't know what the hell I am right now. That made two of us. But one thing was clear. For someone who wasn't gay, Desmond wasn't acting like it at all. The crazy thing is, after that first moment, we both acted like it didn't happen. Not completely. But enough to confuse the hell out of everything. Desmond stepped back, ran both hands through his hair like he was trying to reset himself, and let out a long breath. Yeah. I'm gonna need a second, he muttered. I nodded, giving him space, even though my heart was still going way too fast for something that had lasted, 2 seconds? 3? Didn't matter. It changed the entire dynamic. He grabbed a drink from the kitchen, chugged half of it, then leaned against the counter with his back to me. I don't do this, he said. I figured, I replied. He glanced over his shoulder. No, I mean it. This isn't like a thing for me. I crossed my arms, watching him carefully. Then why did you do it? Silence. Not awkward this time. Just honest. I don't know, he admitted again, quieter now. But I wanted to. That landed heavier than anything else he'd said. We didn't go further that night. And honestly, that might have made it worse. Because instead of things escalating and getting it out of our systems, we just sat with it. Let it build. The next few days were weird. At the gym, everything looked normal on the surface. Same routine. Same jokes. Same spotting each other. But underneath? Completely different. Every touch felt intentional now. Every glance lasted a second too long. Like when I was doing pull-ups and drop down, he was standing closer than usual. I turned, and almost ran straight into him. Damn, he said under his breath, not moving. Yeah, I replied, but neither of us stepped back right away. It was like we were both waiting for the other to break first. He still talked about girls. That part didn't change. But now it felt off. Forced. Like he was reminding both of us what he should be. Met this girl last weekend, he said one afternoon, wiping sweat from his forehead. Oh yeah? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. Yeah. She's cool. He paused. Then added, really cool. I nodded. That's good. But he was watching me again. That same look. Like my reaction mattered more than whatever he was saying. You don't care? He asked suddenly. I frowned. Why would I? He shrugged, looking away. I don't know. Just asking. But that wasn't true. He knew exactly why he was asking. That tension followed us everywhere. And eventually, it snapped. It happened back at his place again. Different night. Same couch. Except this time, there was no pretending. No easing into it. The moment I walked in, I could feel it. That same heavy energy, but stronger. More decided. You good? I asked, dropping my keys on the table. He nodded, but didn't say anything. Just watched me. You've been acting weird all week, I added. That got a reaction. He let out a short laugh. I've been acting weird? Yes. He shook his head, stepping closer. You're the one who kissed me. I raised an eyebrow. You're the one who didn't stop me. That shut him up real quick. We stood there, facing each other, the air thick again. But this time? Neither of us backed off. You've been thinking about it, I said. It wasn't a question. He exhaled slowly. Yeah. Then stop acting like it didn't happen. I'm not, he said, more defensive than he probably meant to. You are. I just. He stopped, jaw tightening. I don't know what this means. I softened slightly. It doesn't have to mean anything right now. That's easy for you to say. He shot back. You already know what you are. That hit. Not in a bad way. Just real. I stepped closer, closing the gap again. You don't have to label it, I said quietly. Just don't lie about it. His eyes locked onto mine. And there it was again. That shift. The one where he stops fighting himself. You keep saying you're not gay, I continued. But every time we're like this. I didn't finish. Didn't need to. Because he already knew. His hand came up, grabbing my shirt lightly. Not pulling. Just holding. You're making this hard, he muttered. I let out a small breath. I'm not doing anything. That's the problem. For a second, either of us moved. Then, he did. And this time, he didn't hesitate. It wasn't rushed. Wasn't messy. It was intentional. Like he'd been thinking about it all week and finally stopped pretending he wasn't. His grip tightened slightly, pulling me just enough to close that last inch of space. And yeah, that moment? Way different from the first. Because now he knew what he was doing. When he pulled back this time, he didn't step away. Didn't panic. He just stayed there, breathing a little heavier, eyes still on mine. Yeah, he muttered. Then shook his head slightly, like he couldn't believe himself. I'm definitely not handling this like a straight guy. I couldn't help but smirk a little. No, you're really not. But instead of pulling away, he stayed close. Closer than before. Like now that the line was crossed. He didn't see a reason to step back anymore. And that's when I realized something. This wasn't just confusion anymore. This was something he was starting to want. After that night, something shifted for real. Not just tension anymore. Not just weird moments we could ignore. It was out in the open now, even if Desmond still refused to say it. The next morning was the strangest part. I woke up on his couch, neck stiff, TV still on low volume. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then I remembered. Everything. I sat up slowly, running a hand over my face, already bracing myself for the awkwardness. But when I looked toward the kitchen, he was just there, making coffee. Like nothing happened. Morning, he said casually, not even turning around. I blinked. Morning. That was it. No mention of last night. No tension in his voice. Nothing. I walked over, leaning against the counter across from him. You always act this normal after stuff like that. He smirked slightly, handing me a cup. After what? I gave him a look. He held it for a second, then looked away, taking a sip of his coffee. Yeah, he muttered. Didn't think so. That was Desmond. He wouldn't deny it happened. But he also wouldn't face it directly. And somehow, that made it harder. Over the next week, things got more intense, but quieter. No big moments. No dramatic repeats of that night. Just constant proximity. He started texting me more. Random stuff at first. You at the gym today? You seen this movie? You alive or what? But then it shifted. Late night messages. You up? Those always hit different. The first time he sent that, I stared at my phone for a solid minute before replying. Yeah. 3 dots. Then, come over. No explanation. No joke. Just that. I shouldn't have gone. But I did. When I got there, he opened the door almost immediately, like he'd been standing right behind it. You took long enough, he said. It's been 5 minutes. Felt longer. That stuck with me. We didn't talk about it. Not directly. But the way he hovered closer than usual, the way his eyes kept drifting back to me like he was trying to decide something. It said enough? You ever just not recognize yourself? He asked suddenly, dropping onto the couch. I leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Depends. He looked up at me. Like you're doing something you never thought you would, but you don't hate it. There it was. Finally. Something honest. I walked over, sitting down next to him, but not too close. Sounds like you're figuring something out, I said. He let out a quiet laugh. Or messing something up. Same thing sometimes. He looked at me again. That look was different now. Less confused. More conflicted. I was with a girl yesterday, he said. I didn't react right away. Okay, I replied. He frowned slightly. That's it. What do you want me to say? I don't know. I shrugged. Did you want to be there? That question hit harder than anything else. I could see it in his face. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I kept thinking about you. My chest tightened. He let out a frustrated breath. That's not normal, right? I gave a small, honest answer. No, I said. It's not. Silence. Heavy again, but different. Less tension. More truth. Then he sat up. Turned to me. Closer this time. You're messing with my head, he said. I shook my head slightly. I'm really not. You are, he insisted, but there was no anger in it. Because I keep telling myself I'm not like this. His voice dropped a little. But then I'm here. With you. I didn't move. Didn't rush it. Because this wasn't about impulse anymore. This was about him choosing to be here. You don't have to figure everything out, I said quietly. But you should stop pretending it's nothing. He held my gaze for a long second. Then nodded. Slow. Like he was finally admitting something. To himself more than me. Yeah, he murmured. It's definitely not nothing. And this time? When the distance between us disappeared again. It wasn't confusion. It wasn't an accident. It was a choice. At some point, it stopped being something we could pretend was casual. Not because of what we were doing, but because of how it started to feel. Desmond still hadn't said the words. Not once. No labels. No. I like you? No. This is something. Just actions. Consistent. Intentional actions. And honestly, that was starting to mess with me. It hit me one night at the gym. We were in our usual spot, same routine, same rhythm, but something felt off. Not between us. Around us. Yo, Des! Someone called from across the room. I glanced over. A girl, tall, confident, the type that clearly knew what she was doing, walking straight toward us. He noticed too. And just like that, I saw it. That switch. Hey, she said, smiling at him like they already had history. Hey, he replied, casual, but not distant. Too comfortable. I stepped back slightly, giving them space. Didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Because suddenly I felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. They talked for a minute. Maybe two. But it felt longer. And the whole time I could feel it. That familiar tight feeling in my chest I didn't want to name. Then she laughed, lightly touching his arm. And yeah, that did it. I grabbed my water bottle, turning away like I had somewhere to be. Didn't wait. Didn't interrupt. Just left the moment. He caught up with me near the lockers. Yo, where you going? He asked. I shrugged, not looking at him. Nowhere. He frowned. You just dipped. So? He stepped in front of me, forcing me to stop. What's that supposed to mean? I finally looked at him. You tell me. There it was. That shift again. But this time? Not tension. Something sharper. That girl. He started. I don't care. I cut in. Which, yeah, wasn't true. And he knew it. He studied my face for a second, then let out a quiet breath. You do, he said. I shook my head. You said you're straight, remember? Go be straight. The second the words left my mouth, I knew. That wasn't just a comment. That was frustration. His expression changed. Not defensive. Not angry. Just serious. You think this is that simple? He asked. I let out a short laugh. Isn't it? No. That came out fast. Firm. We stood there in silence for a second, people moving around us, noise filling the space, but none of it touched whatever was happening between us. She doesn't matter, he said. I crossed my arms. Then why were you smiling like that? He stepped closer. Lowered his voice. Because I'm trying to act normal, Sergio. That hit harder than I expected. Normal, I repeated. Yeah, he said. The version of me that makes sense. And what is this? I asked, gesturing between us. He didn't hesitate this time. This doesn't make sense. That should have been my cue to walk away. Seriously. Because if something doesn't make sense, it usually means it doesn't end well. But instead I stayed. Because despite everything, he wasn't pulling away. You think I don't see it? I said quietly. You go back and forth like this every day. I know. And I'm just supposed to, what? Wait until you figure it out. He didn't answer right away. That silence? That was my answer. I nodded slowly. Yeah. That's what I thought. I moved to step past him. But he caught my wrist. Not tight. Just enough to stop me. Sergio, he said, voice lower now. I didn't turn around. What? I don't want you to walk away. That wasn't what I expected. I turned back slowly, meeting his eyes. Then stop giving me a reason to. For once. He didn't have a quick response. Didn't deflect. Didn't joke. He just stood there, looking at me like he was finally realizing something real was on the line. I don't know what I'm doing yet, he admitted. I nodded. Yeah. I can tell. But I know one thing. I waited. He stepped closer. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Just sure. I keep choosing you. And that? That was the first time it actually felt real. I keep choosing you. That replayed in my head way longer than I wanted to admit. Because the problem wasn't that I didn't believe him. It was that I did. After that night, things between us got deeper. Not louder. Not more dramatic. Just heavier. Like everything we did now carried weight. He stopped mentioning girls. Not completely, but enough that I noticed. And when he did, it felt different. Less convincing. More like habit than truth. But the real change? He started showing up. Consistently. Texting wasn't just late night anymore. It was mornings. Random check-ins. You eat yet? You coming later? Don't bail on me today. Small things. But they added up. One night, we weren't even doing anything. Just sitting on his balcony, city lights in the background, both of us quiet for once. He was leaning back in his chair, head tilted up, like he was thinking about something he couldn't quite say. You ever wish things were simpler? He asked. I let out a small breath. All the time. He nodded slowly. Yeah, me too. I glanced at him. You're still stuck on that? He laughed under his breath. You make it sound like it's easy. It's not, I said. But pretending it's nothing isn't helping either. He didn't argue. Didn't deflect. Just sat there with it. I told my boy about you, he said suddenly. That caught me off guard. You what? Not like that, he added quickly. I just mentioned you. I raised an eyebrow. And? He smirked slightly. He said I talk about you too much. I couldn't help it, I laughed. Yeah? What did you say? He looked at me then. Straight on. I didn't deny it. That did something to me. More than I expected. But it wasn't all smooth. Not even close. Because the closer we got, the more real everything became. And Desmond? He was still fighting parts of it. It showed up in small ways. Like how he'd get quiet if things felt too intense. Or how sometimes, out of nowhere, he'd pull back just enough to remind himself he still had control. One night, it almost broke everything. We were back at his place again. Same space. Different energy. You ever gonna tell anyone? He asked, out of nowhere. I looked up from my phone. Tell who what? He gestured vaguely between us. This. I shrugged. I don't go around announcing my life like that. That's not what I mean. Then what do you mean? He hesitated. Then said it. Like if someone asked? I sat up a little straighter. You worried about that? He ran a hand over his face. I just don't want people looking at me different. There it was. Not fear of us. Fear of everything around it. I nodded slowly. So what are you saying? I'm saying. He paused, struggling to phrase it right. I don't want this getting out. Something in my chest tightened. You think I'm gonna go tell people? I asked. No, that's not. Because it kinda sounds like you're worried about being seen with me. That's not it. Then what is it, Desmond? He didn't answer right away. And that silence? It said enough. I stood up, grabbing my jacket. All right, I said. He frowned. What are you doing? I'm not doing this. Doing what? This half-in, half-out thing, I said, turning to face him. You want me when it's just us, but the second the world comes into it, you start acting different. That's not fair. It is. He stood up too, stepping closer. You think this is easy for me? He asked. I don't think it is, I said. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna be something you hide. That hit. I saw it in his face. I'm not hiding you, he said. Then stop acting like you are. For a second, it felt like everything was about to snap. Like all the tension, all the confusion, all the back and forth was finally catching up to us. I just need time, he said. I shook my head. You've had time. I'm trying. And I see that, I said, softer now. But I'm not gonna lose myself while you figure it out. That was the first time I stepped back. Not because I didn't care. but because I did. And for the first time since all of this started. Desmond looked like he might actually lose me. I didn't expect it to feel like that. Walking away, I mean. It wasn't dramatic. No slammed doors. No shouting. Just me grabbing my jacket and leaving. But the second I stepped outside, it hit. Hard. Because for all the confusion, all the back and forth, Desmond had become part of my routine. And now? There was just space. He didn't text me that night. Or the next morning. Which, honestly, made it worse. Because I kept checking. Even though I told myself I wouldn't. Day 1 turned into day 2. Then 3. At the gym, I went at a different time. Didn't want to run into him. Didn't want that look. That pull. Because I knew if I saw him, I might fold. By day 4, I started convincing myself it was over. Not officially. But in that quiet, unspoken way things end when neither person knows how to fix it. Then my phone buzzed. Desmond, you really just gone disappear like that? I stared at it longer than I should have. Then typed. Deleted. Typed again. Me. I told you what it was. 3 dots. Gone. Then back again. Desmond. Yeah. You did. Pause. Then. That doesn't mean I'm cool with it. I let out a breath, leaning back against my couch. Me. You don't get to have it both ways. This time, he replied fast. Desmond. And you don't get to just walk out like I don't matter. That got me. Because the truth? He did matter. More than I planned. I didn't respond right away. But he didn't stop. Desmond. I've been trying, Sergio. You know that. I closed my eyes for a second. Yeah. I did know. But trying and choosing aren't the same thing. Before I could overthink it, my phone rang. His name. I hesitated. Then answered. Yeah? I said. You done avoiding me? His voice sounded different. Less guarded. I'm not avoiding you, I said. I'm giving you space. I didn't ask for space. You needed it. No, he said, firmer this time. I needed you not to leave. That hit deeper than anything he texted. I sat up, running a hand through my hair. Desmond. No, listen, he cut in. I've been thinking about everything you said. I stayed quiet. Let him talk. I don't want to hide you, he continued. I don't. Then don't. It's not that simple. It never is. He exhaled, frustrated, but not at me. At himself. I've spent my whole life being one way, he said. One version of me that made sense to everyone, including me. I leaned forward slightly. And now? Now I can't go back to that like nothing happened. That was new. Not confusion. Not denial. Something else. So what are you saying? I asked. I'm saying. He trailed off. Then I heard movement. Keys. A door. Where are you? He asked. I frowned. At home. Why? I'm coming over. I stood up instinctively. Desmond. I'm not doing this over the phone. And just like that, he hung up. My heart started picking up again. That same feeling from the beginning. Like something was about to shift. For real this time. 20 minutes later. A knock. I opened the door. And there he was. No hesitation. No smirk. No pretending. Just Desmond. Looking straight at me like he already made up his mind about something. You were right, he said immediately. No hello. No build-up. Just that. I crossed my arms slightly. About what? About me, he said. About all of it. I didn't say anything. Just watched him. I kept saying I'm not gay, he continued. Like if I repeated it enough, it would stay true. He shook his head slightly. But that doesn't change what I feel when I'm with you. That was it. That was the moment. Then stop saying it, I said quietly. He stepped closer. No hesitation this time. No stopping halfway. I don't know exactly what I am yet, he admitted. Okay. But I know I don't want to lose you trying to figure it out. That mattered more than any label. I searched his face for a second, making sure this wasn't just another moment. Another almost. You sure? I asked. Yeah. No pause. No doubt. Then softer. I'm done pretending this is nothing. And for the first time since all of this started, it finally felt like he meant it. For a second, neither of us moved. It sounds small, but that moment? It mattered. Because everything before this had always been almost honest. Almost real. Almost something. But now, there was no hesitation left in him. I'm done pretending this is nothing. That line stayed in the air between us. Heavy, in a good way. I stepped closer, just enough to close that space that always seemed to exist between us before. You know this doesn't magically fix everything, right? I said. He nodded. I know. You're still figuring yourself out. Yeah. And people are still gonna see you however they see you. Another nod. But, he added, looking at me in that steady way he had when he stopped running from things, that doesn't change what I want. I held his gaze. And what's that? He didn't look away this time. You. Simple. No overthinking. No extra words. Just clear. I let out a quiet breath, some of that tension I didn't even realize I was holding finally easing. Okay, I said. And yeah, that was me choosing too. The next few weeks weren't perfect. Not even close. Desmond was still Desmond. Still figuring things out in real time. There were moments where I could tell he caught himself, like when we were out in public and he'd instinctively create a little space between us, then realize it, and close it again. Small things. But they mattered. One of the biggest shifts happened back at the gym. Same place everything started. We walked in together. That alone felt different. Not sneaking around it. Not spacing it out. Just normal. Yo, Des! Someone called again. Same kind of voice as before. Same type of situation. I glanced at him. He glanced at me. Then back at them. Be right there, he called back. But he didn't move. Instead, he stayed next to me. Like it wasn't even a question. That moment? That told me everything. Later, while we were between sets, I nudged him slightly. You didn't go. He shrugged, casual, but I could see the small smirk. I was already where I wanted to be. Yeah. That did something to me. It wasn't about big declarations. It wasn't about labels. It was about consistency. And slowly, he got there. One night, we were back on that same balcony. Same view. Same quiet. But everything felt different now. You know what's funny? He said. What? I used to be so sure about everything. I laughed lightly. Yeah, I could tell. He shook his head. Now I'm not sure about anything. I glanced at him. That a bad thing? He thought about it. Then looked at me. Nah, he said. Not if this is part of it. That was the closest he got to defining anything. And honestly, he didn't need to say more. Because at the end of the day, it was never really about whether he was gay or not. It was about the fact that he kept choosing me. Over the confusion. Over the fear. Over the version of himself he thought he had to be. And me? I chose him too. Knowing it wouldn't be perfect. Knowing it might get messy. But also knowing it was real. And sometimes, that's enough.